Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Hello, everyone. My name is Lastia, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? I am here today with my co-host, Glenn.
Hello.
There's Glenn. And today we have another super special guest, someone who I am absolutely thrilled to have on today, someone I have wanted to have on for months and months and months. She is one of my besties from down south of the Canada-US border. And although we have never met in person, I really feel like she is one of the most amazing, beautiful, inspirational, just integral beings in my life right now. And I am so thrilled and excited and delighted to have her with us today. So a little bit about this person. I'm going to pull from her bio right now. So she is a master Reiki energy healer. She is a Toltec Eagle Knight of the shamanic lineage through Don Miguel Ruiz, who most of us will know is the author of the Four Agreements, among other things. She also has a background in fine art. She's an amazing painter, and she blends the passion of creative, aesthetic, spirituality, and energy work into what she calls soul styling, which is about clothing and styling your authentic self. She also works with clients to recover and strengthen self-esteem and to amplify their inner beauty from the inside out. And she is a reverend at the Global Truth Center, Los Angeles. She has studied with Michael Beckwith at Agape. There is so much that I could tell you about this person because she is just such a sparkly, shimmery, glimmery, delightful gem of a being. She loves jazz. She is a California girl through and through. She loves Celtic stuff. She has been to Ireland and Scotland and feels a great affinity with that part of the world and that energy there. She has an amazing family, her husband David, her two kids, Kiva and Zuzu, and then maybe even like what she would call a third kid, her super cute, amazing, could be a cat, but is a dog, a pug called Bodhi. I don't know if he's going to pop up at some point, but if he comes, no, it's too bad because if he came,
maybe,
who knows? Put him on camera. Anyway, there is so much more to tell, so much more to learn, so much more to discover about our guest today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Reverend Kirby Ingram by asking her, Reverend Kirby, who do you think you are?
Oh my goodness. I've been thinking about that question for a long time. And since we started talking about this, and it's interesting, the answer is always different. And but I think what it boils down to for me in this moment, reading all the books that we're reading, Lassia and I are in an advanced consciousness studies class. We're studying quantum physics and spirituality and the intersection of that. And simultaneously, I'm TAing a beginning practitioner class that is evolving to bring this idea of quantum theory into it and what we know about consciousness. And I think it really boils down to, who am I? I am consciousness. I'm an individualized expression of that. I am that consciousness. And I pretty much wake up every day recognizing that, kind of anchoring in that, and knowing that that's where I create my life from today. And it's not to say that I stay present in that throughout the day, but that's where I at least start my days. And then I revisit that throughout the day. It's like, where am I creating from? Where's my consciousness? So what I thought was going to be a really complicated answer I think it has become very simple, which is, I think to me, it mirrors the simplicity and the grace of consciousness itself. Just one mind, one consciousness, one energy that is flowing everywhere. It's quite graceful and poetic and simple, even though it's extraordinarily profound for the implications, but its simplicity is awe-inspiring to me.
I love that. And I'm gonna answer right away by saying, guess who else? Another one of our guests said the right answer is consciousness, but then kind of went off on a whole sort of like other sort of thing. Reverend Jonathan. That was exactly what he said when we talked to him a few months ago. And then he kind of elaborated and we went into, you know, whatever the moment kind of led us into and whatever was emerging out of that moment. And I think what you just said is so amazing, because the more we go along in this class that we're taking on Thursday nights with Dr. James Mellon, the more we plunge into quantum theory and spirituality and sort of the discovery of one through the other and unraveling them both kind of thing. The simplicity, that's just what keeps coming up for me. There was even that one chapter that we were reading in the Paul Levy book, The Quantum Revelation, for those of you who are interested, where he's talking about his idol, is it Andrew Wheeler, who says, you know, like, simplify it, you know, bring it down to a few words, something you could. Reverend Kirby's showing it right now, the cover on The Quantum Revelation by Paul Levy. Someone I would like to have on the show, actually. And I'm gonna contact him, because wow, that would be a great conversation. Anyway, but to get it so simplified that you could stick it on a t-shirt, you know, that's what sort of, you know, this is all about. And so simplify, and that, yes, consciousness is kind of what comes up for me too, even though I've never officially answered this "who do you think you are" question myself. I just keep asking other people what they think they are.
Taking field notes.
Yeah. And man, I already have half a page of notes just in the, you know, like 5 minutes that we've been talking here. So yeah, so consciousness. So you have been, let's just kind of go that route. So I met you a few years ago when you TA'd my class in year 1 of practitioner studies. And we started to get to know each other at the end of year 2 as you were finishing off ministerial studies. And so I know that you have this background, like way more time spent with Agape and Michael Beckwith and that crew. And now you have transferred over to the Global Truth Center with Dr. James and everyone and everything that's going on there, which is now sort of melding with CSL Palm Desert, the Center for Spiritual Living Palm Desert, which is a super exciting venture. So talk to us a little bit about that transition or the bridge, or, you know, whatever that, you know, evolution for you has been from where you sort of, I don't know if even started is the right word, but your experience with Agape and everything that happened there, you know, just emerging and unfolding and evolving into where you are right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was studying with Don Miguel Ruiz, and one of his direct students, Barbara Simon, who is an amazing yogi here in LA area. And we would meet once a month, and we would do we would do retreats once in a while. And a friend of ours that was also working with Don Miguel told us that, and what was happening was that there was like an urge inside of me to gather more, to do more, right? Once a month was rich, it was lovely, but it wasn't enough. Like there was something, this like divine urge that was calling me to do something. And so I was pointed to the direction of Agape. And they meet every, you know, they didn't even say it was they didn't say it was a spiritual center or anything. It's just they meet every week, and it's a really amazing experience. Well, that was underselling because I walked into that place, and I think for the first 6 months, I just cried and cried. It was just the love, the energy, the power that was just that existed within that building just was palpable. It was just a visceral experience. And I felt like I grew up there, you know, even though I had just had my first child, Zuzu, and she was about a year. And it really became my spiritual home. You know, they're my family, everybody, even though people come and go, and, you know, new practitioners and ministers are birthed every year, you know, and there's a lot of people there that I don't know now, but it's still like a family energetically, you know, it's like that quantum entanglement. Like I'm just never not going to be a part of that. It was an amazing experience. And Agape became independent right at the beginning of my, my stay there. My stay there sounds like I was on vacation. But I remember taking a foundations class. It was all CSL, and it was, it completely changed, radically changed right after that. So all the practitioner studies, all the ministerial work was based on a foundation of mysticism, really embracing all the inner mystic that we are. And I distinctly remember reading Joel Goldsmith, The Mystical Eye, as in not I, but mystical eye.
Yeah.
And it was very powerful. It was very powerful. And it changed me in a lot of ways. I was very suspicious of the word God. I didn't grow up in any religion. My parents tried. We went to probably the most bland type of church that you could go to in the States. It's and no disrespect, it was very sweet, but it was really not dogmatic, but it was the Presbyterian church, very sweet and gentle. And we would try to go, and but usually just on holidays. But that didn't last long. I was in Sunday school there, and I asked too many questions, apparently, that weren't answerable. So I remember having the conversation outside in the hallway with my parents and the teacher. And I was like 5 years old. I mean, I don't even know how old I was, but they just said, it's probably better that she's not a part of the group, or something in that regard, that it wasn't right for me. It wasn't right. Like, it wasn't a right fit.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents, like, later saying to me adamantly, and they were, you know, this was the 70s, right? So they were very much hippie culture and whatnot. And they said to me, like, straight in the eye, holding me, like, we want you to be you're able to, what did they say? They said, if you want to go to other spiritual centers, and they didn't say spiritual centers, but if you want to explore, if you want to even be a Buddhist, and that was pretty radical back then, if you want to be a Buddhist, we don't care. We want you to be happy. And at that point, that was the gate that opened, permission to explore.
This was at 5?
I was very young. Yes.
Wow.
I was super, super young. And this has nothing to do with Agape, but it was kind of like the foundation of, like, my wariness of God. Like, it was just, I started learning that the whole word God was very loaded, and religion often used their ideas as weapons and ways to control people. That's how I saw it. So I was not really very interested in anything spiritual until I started taking philosophy classes. And when I was in high school, I took an English class that was like a special class. It was about death and dying and grieving. And being kind of the post-punk era, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so there. I want to know about this death, dying, and grieving thing, you know. But it sparked my interest to have. We would have lectures with different faith leaders, and they would talk to us about their ideas of, you know, what happens when we die. That was like the big question. Like your question is, who do you think you are? The big question in this class was, so rabbi, so father, you know, what happens to us when we die? You know, that was like the big thing. So it was kind of a Socratic seminar type of thing. More lecture, less Socratic seminar, but there was elements of that. And it interested me when the rabbi was very honest in his approach and said, well, we don't really know. Mm-hmm. And somehow that like took me to a trajectory of finding some Einstein writings about the one energy of the universe. I don't know how it connected, but that was my in to going deeper into spirituality, that there's just one energy, and it's ridiculous to think that we're outside of that, because mm-hmm. there's just this one, and it's intelligent. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, I don't even know what the quote is, but somewhere along the line that was, you know, brought into my awareness. So agape was, it didn't feel dogmatic at all, right? I mean, they were just basically talking about the same thing, that there is only this dynamic energy, you know? And yes, he used the word God, but he also used consciousness. He also used the word, you know, awareness. He used the word mind. And so these synonyms helped expand my willingness, if you will, and my receptivity to a greater understanding of this. And I was in. I mean, after months of crying every Sunday and just being cracked open. Mm-hmm. So I stayed. I did all the prerequisite classes there. I did practitioner 1 and practitioner 2, and I started ministerial there. And it was all based on that at one-ment, and I recognizing that even that word is somewhat dualistic, but that there's only this one thing, and that we are it. And that we don't need to rely on anybody else, that there's an internal intelligence that's happening all the time. And it's our job to cultivate that awareness. It's our job to cultivate that relationship with the mystical I, the I within ourselves, the I am that I am. And that's where I was at. And there were some hiccups in the program at Agape, and it felt like, well, what happened was during one of my meditations, it came to the forefront of my awareness that I would be graduating 2020. 2020 was the year. That was the year. And I was looking at the program I was in, and it didn't look like that was going to be happening. And there was more that I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And for me, at that point in time, that intersection was, you know, actually that thought of, oh, I need to do something else, that didn't come until later, actually. I was a part of the program, the ministerial program, was to go do some field work, so to speak. So we needed to do internships, and also go to other spiritual centers to see how other centers, work, how they run their services, what their campuses are like, and all of that. And so as a part of that project of going to other centers, I went to Global Truth Center in Westlake Village in I think it's Ventura County. It's actually just on the border. But I loved it. It was so sweet. It was not the 1,000-person or 1,500-person venue that Agape was at that point. I think it was 1,000. And it just felt like this cozy little family. And I really responded to it. Cozy is a big word for me. I mean, it kind of, in my house, in my life, it operates in the background a lot of the times, coziness. And it just feels so good, doesn't it? The word cozy.
Yeah.
So nice, comforting. And Dr. James Mellon, so funny. I just really enjoyed it. And then, so leaving there, I did my little report and turned it in, and, I was still active at Agape. And then I finished some internships, and I needed to do another internship for the next year. And then, lightning bolt. It's like, oh, that's going to be with Dr. James Mellon. Your internship's going there. So I just pursued it. I pursued it and pursued it. And Dr. James Mellon is very busy, and he's hard to get a hold of, and you have to be persistent. Mm-hmm. And I just knew that that's what I needed to do. And contrary to what he says, he never said no to me. He was always
he tells a different story. Yeah,
he does. I think what is the quote about the sweep of love is irresistible? I think the sweep of high consciousness, like focused consciousness that that is irresistible. And I think that I was irresistible to him. And so I started interning with your Prac 1 class as a part of my work with Agape. And then so time goes on, and I'm getting to know him and getting to know the community and your class. And I was having a session with him, and I was talking about, my next steps at Agape, and just wondering, what was going to be happening as far as this impulse, 2020 impulse. He's like, oh, well, you should just come, do your last year with us. And I never thought about that before. And so I talked to the dean of the ministerial group there, and they approved it. They blessed it. And they said that you could have dual citizenship if you want. And it was all good. And Reverend Michael signed off on it. It was great. And so then my transition there was like, okay, now I'm the new kid. I went from cozy, right, to, oh God, what have I done? Mm-hmm. Like, it was so interesting. Like, anything that needed to be healed, cleaned up, looked at, came up. I didn't come up with GTC. I barely knew Dr. James except for as a TA, in this professional relationship. And I walked into this class of year 2 ministerial students who many of them had been through all the training together. So they had a certain coziness that I did with my Agape colleagues. And I was the new kid, and I put a brave face on it. But I was, as I have admitted, and I've talked about on stage, that I was terrified without realizing that there was terror going on. Like I felt so insecure. Like these minds are so amazing. These hearts are wide open. These minds are brilliant. And I had forgotten, it's almost everything I had learned before had just been dumped in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am there because I am equivalent to that I am equal to this. And that's why I'm here. I am in the presence of these magnificent minds, every single one of them. And it's a reflection of who I am. So none of that came up in my mind whatsoever for almost the entire year. It was like all of a sudden, like I catapulted myself out of the cozy, and all of a sudden I was at the end. I was naked, or I don't even know what the word was, but like the coziness was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that cutting edge of that next evolutionary leap that needed to happen for me. Like I needed to be like pulled out of that like comfort zone to know something greater. And Dr. James teaches very differently, and than all the ministers at Agape. And so it's very like principle based, principle. And I wasn't used to that. I was kind of used to floating in the creative field of energy, and now I needed to anchor. But it makes perfect sense for me, because that's always been something that I've talked to my clients about, that we and just conversation in general. It's so important that we're not the guru in the cave on the mountaintop, or so woo-woo that people don't understand what we're saying. We need to be steeped in now in this world. And Greg Braden even talks about it. We need to walk both worlds, that what we might call the spiritual world, or that, that creative opening of potentiality, and to be aware of what's happening here and now, and that's been a tenet of my practice, because what I learned at Agape was that we have to meet people right where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be present with people. So, and to hold that body of compassion, to hold the container of love, and to acknowledge that people suffer, that people, they struggle. When someone dies suddenly, or there's an addiction going on, there's struggles. And it's not like Dr. James says, it's not all good, all God. No, that doesn't work. People want to hear, people want to be seen and acknowledged first and foremost. And I think that is a truth across the board, no matter who you're talking about, no matter what political affiliation, no matter, what spiritual denomination. We all require being acknowledged and being seen, right? So anyways, back to the ministerial one. It took almost the entire year for me to wake up to, where are you creating from? What is it that you're believing? And I understand, and I've always known it. It deepened me even more to recognize that there are limiting beliefs that are operating within us so often, and that we're not even aware. We're scarcely aware of them even there, and that they're operating, they're running the show behind the scenes without us even being aware of it. And I experienced it firsthand. And I think since then, it's taken me in a whole new trajectory. I felt little bits of that when we came into this new advanced consciousness studies with Dr. James Mellon, with these amazing minds, again, but it didn't faze me this time. It was just wear it lightly, know that there's only one mind, and we all express differently. We all express uniquely, and that is a beautiful thing. And I may not be the sharpest tack in the box, and that's okay. I may not grasp all the concepts, and that's perfectly fine, because there is, like, we're all here on purpose for a purpose. And I know partly that my purpose is to create that container of love, to be a container of love, to be that a cozy place, a place where you can, a soft place to land, in the times of tumult. And that is a long, long way of explaining my shift over from Agape to Global Truth Center. So I'm now fully licensed through Emerson and Global Truth Center, and I'm no longer at Agape except in spirit. They're my, the family I grew up with, really, and I'm in contact with a lot of them still. So.
Wow, there was a lot in there.
I know.
And I think, excuse me, what I'd like to start with is the word cozy, because it came up so many times. And the very first time you said it, when you said, now I can't remember, I wrote it down though, but you were talking about Agape and Global Truth Center, but that you had this cozy, feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, cozy with like 300 people. Wow. What would she think if she came here to CSL Victoria, where there's like 40? It's like, where'd it go? But I get that. The more I listen to that, the more, and I realized, honestly, one of my cozy places, a cozy state of being is our prayer sessions together. We meet once a week, and you just, and whether it's because of your, shamanic, lineage, because of your time at Agape, because of everything else, and yes, it's because of all that, but because you have a way of praying, of treating, of just like dropping. I don't think, you really ever drop out, even on those days where maybe you're not feeling, 100%. Your energy and your beingness, for me, is just, it's so resonant for me. And I love being in your presence, and I love our time together. And so when we go into treatment together, and sometimes just one of us is talking, we haven't officially gone into, prayer, just one of us is talking. And from that place of like firm, concrete, steadfast, unwavering faith, knowingness, that I am, there's a style that you have. There's, and maybe your treating has gone through your soul styling, like, because you come out in a way that is just so beautiful, so authentic. I actually, before we started officially today, I asked Reverend Kirby to treat us in, which is just, to basically say a prayer before we started, so that Glenn could have the opportunity to experience what that's like. And really, for me too. And it's so different. Your languaging is different. Your energy is different. Your, the nuance and the gentleness and the grace, and just, it's different, and I love it. And it is steeped in principle, and as you are, I mean, you're a walking, talking, living, breathing expression of the divine, of conscious. You just like ooze it all the time. And so, I love being in your presence when you're treating, because just something, it is cozy, but it is so expansive and otherworldly at the same time. So I thank you for bringing that word, into our purview today in this episode, because it is such a good word, and it's so much more than comfort zone. It's because comfort zone to me a lot of the time right now is something to step out of, something to move past, something to reach beyond, something to, more, there's more out there than the comfort zone. The comfort zone to me has a, a limiting quality to it, whereas cozy, there is comfort in that. There is, I guess, the knowingness, the truth part of, the I am consciousness, energy, the allness of being. And so yeah, so that's, your our time together is one of my cozy places. Our home is one of my cozy places.
Right.
Glenn is one of my cozy places.
Mm-hmm.
And this, even the discomfort that I have felt throughout most of this year, up until the last few weeks, really until we started reading this, Paul Levy book in class, the discomfort that I have felt, as discombobulating and as just shattering as it has been many times since September, that's a cozy place for me, because I know that I'm growing. I'm expanding. I am letting go of stuff. I am learning. I'm exploring. I am emerging. I am evolving. And that is, I would rather be there than be somewhere, in a place of complacency or comfort zone, or this is what I know, and that's good. Because the learning and expansion and just the evolution is like, that's it. That's what's happening, and I want more of that. So yeah.
Well, and I want to go a little deeper in the distinction between comfort zone and cozy, and that comfort zone is almost connotes a hiding out, the comfort zone of mediocrity,
Mm-hmm.
that when we want to stay in the comfort zone, we're almost hiding from the excellence that's seeking to express through us. That's how it's used, I think, in for the most part in our society, that and how when we speak about the comfort zone. Cozy, on the other hand, cozy has it's like a visceral, I don't know if it's emotional, but there's a visceral something that happens. Like when you say the word cozy, it's like, for me, it is, there's a joy there. There's a sense of belonging, which is connected to an expanded idea of something, and well, I've got nothing else to say on that, I think. I just want to differentiate those two, so that's how I see it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Honey
think, Glenn?
Munch, Honey Munch, what do you have to add? You've been quiet, so not that there's been a lot of time to talk yet, but
Yeah,
come on
that's
in.
a whole lot to. That's a whole lot to put on a T-shirt, If and as far as the cozy word, like for me, that evokes the feeling you get with just knowing everything's okay, everything is as it should be, in the sort of visiting your grandmother or a favorite aunt kind of thing. I mean, in the Irish tradition, it's like, cozy cottages, and like the weather outside is horrible, whatever. But you come inside and there's a fire going, and your granny makes some tea, and
With a cozy on it.
yeah, with the
I
cozy.
was thinking tea cozy. I was thinking tea cozy.
And yeah, so that feeling you get with the love that comes from a grandparent that's different from a parent. There's no real strings attached. Like when a parent raises a child in love, there's still this thing with boundaries and limits, and like, letting things go, and then reining the child in a bit, and then, but with a grandparent, it's a little bit more unconditional. Come here, like that kind of thing. That's what I'm getting from cozy. So if you're
Mm.
if you're both putting that out there for people and feel that within the embrace of, you know, the community of whether it's the class or when you, I think you were doing some talks at GTC in person before all this happened, right? I remember seeing one or two with you there.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, and as far as like the buzz thing, like when Lassie's talking about your energy, the way you share it and the way she receives it, I would be just sort of sitting in the living room and she's in the bedroom with you know, talking to you on Zoom or whatever, and there would just be this face that I would know she was going to have if she's coming out of she's like this kind of shocked. I can't even do it. It's just like, wow. But like, it just like is still snowballing inside of her, you know, this feeling that she would get with sharing energy with you and a few others too, where it's like next level, right? That's what I was getting. But, okay. So yeah, the other thing, the Irish thing, is you're talking about your parents giving you this send off, right? This permission, as you said, to just go out there and be as great as you want to be and challenge yourself in different ways and whatever. And to have those kind of steps where you're doing, you know, the Don Miguel Ruiz, that sounds like a whole hours long conversation and just trying to encapsulate that.
Yeah.
And Agape, and then flowing into GTC, and then who knows what's next, right? But for me, like this is one thing I kind of wonder about, is that we're on this land, and we're in Canada. We call the Native and First Nations community call us settlers, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the colonial kind of experience, but like a polite word would be settler. So we're all have settled on these lands, right? But we also bring with us our own, like in our genetic makeup through our parents and you know, grandparents and further back, we have this built-in experience of our own traditions of like, and most, you know, obviously you go back far enough and it's pagan traditions, you know, pre-Christianity, pre Abrahamic religion kind of spreading through Europe, and then the world. It's like those roots, they're still in us, like they're still in a very real way. So when you talk about going to Ireland, it's like, and it just things bubble up and things are like alive in you still, because you reconnect with experiences. And I think you can do it here too, but it's interesting. I'm still kind of looking into this idea of like what I am when I connect through nature, to the land, and then to myself, to who I am, and what are those triggers, what is that, you know? It's a really strange experience. But when I want to talk about something and I can't until the end of the podcast because it kind of spoils something, but
Okay.
anyway,
Well,
it revolves around, like for me, John O'Donoghue, who's passed away, but very much an Irish Celtic kind of Christian guy, you know, in the Catholic tradition, obviously, but he explores so much, and I think you were alluding to that when you're talking about Agape, speaking of mysticism. You know, it's not just God, it's like how the extremes of experience have sampled God or whatever in their own way. And it's usually through mystics, because like the mystics are the crazy ones who are just take things to such an extreme, but then they get such a reward out of it, you know? And I think I appreciate that. And basically what you're saying is it's resonated with this stuff I've been reading recently from John O'Donoghue's kind of sampling of all these other mystics and poets, you know. But
well,
yeah, I'll take a breath. Sorry.
There's so much there, Glenn, that is bubbling up. That I'll just start with the last thing that you ended with the mystics. For me, my understanding of the mystic is someone that's outside of, I mean, they may be in deep with whatever religious tradition that is in, their country or where their place of residence, but they have an experience, a one-to-one or all one experience of the truth of and I don't, this is a dangerous word, truth, but just that consciousness, the one consciousness that Einstein talks about, that so many of these quantum physicists are talking about, that all the mystics throughout the ages of this, like Saint Teresa's ecstasy, is that like it, that's a on her tomb, right? Or that's like a big statue, and I don't know if it must be Catholic saint, but like that's what it is. Like for me, that a mystic is someone that has a direct experience outside of what the religion has taught them, and that they are then like cracked open and are sharing it to the world, and to various degrees. But I look at someone like St. Francis, who I don't know very much of, but my husband, who comes from a Catholic background, adores St. Francis and what he represented. He was a very open-minded thinker. So for me, mysticism is not a mystery. It's just, it talks about that direct connection to source, whatever you want to call it, but that we all have that. So that's what I love Joel Goldsmith's book about the mystical eye. It's like, that's all within us. That's all that's going on here. And it's just, do we have the willingness or the receptivity to tap into it? So that I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but I also want to talk about the Celtic thing. Of course, I'm American. We can get, straight lines to English and Irish and Scottish lineages in our family, but then there's all this unknown, right? I mean, there's always this unknown. We've not done the DNA test. I don't really have an interest in that. But I will tell you that the first time I went to Scotland, when I got off the train, I just started crying. Like no reason at all. It was like, something, and I get emotional now. Something in me just said, you are home. And it was the most amazing experience. I had no idea. I was probably 20, 21. And again, in 2019, when we went traveling with the kids, we were in Scotland again and in Edinburgh, and walking down the high street and looking up and seeing the Scottish flag, I literally stopped and had to catch my breath. There was something in me that was just, I don't know. I can't explain it. And I've shared with Lassia a number of times, it was one big, huge experience I had in a meditation. It's happened twice, about washing up on the shores of some beach somewhere in Scotland or Ireland, that and being met with all of these beings of light of all the generations of that Celtic mysticism. And I don't understand it. I'm not a scholar at all of it. I just know that I have some kind of connection, that can't be explained, and that I just embrace and love. And the funny thing is, when you talk about the lands that we're on, I'm so keenly aware of it. And very much when I was at university, in the art program, I was doing this other little side thing with the modern American mysticism. It was like this little nugget within religious studies on campus. and learning about Native American mysticism and learning about it through like the most, people that you wouldn't expect. I mean, I never would have expected through Joseph Campbell, I would learn about Native American mysticism and read different books. And then being attracted to working with Don Miguel Ruiz was a big part of my education about the soul of everything, that everything is a thou. And there's a book on my shelf that I've never read that came from David's life prior to me, that it's titled something like Living as If All Life Matters. And that's what brings me back to that. And a little side story that David, my husband, his grandmother was indigenous, maybe his great grandmother, but of Mayan descent. His mother was from Mexico, and his father, interestingly, was he was from Maine, but it was in Canada at the time when he was growing up. So I guess borders changed or whatever. So he was French Canadian. He has always been fascinated with Celtic mythology, with Celtic mysticism. And here I am of this other lineage. And I've always been interested in Native American lineages. And then so like when we got together and we realized this, it was like sitting on opposite poles of each other, like in wonder of each other. And I still am my breath is taken away when I see him sometimes, when just like, oh my God, he's amazing. And an amazing experience I had when we first met was I had an out of body experience. He was talking about an experience he had with the oldest pepper tree down in Southern California, that's giant pepper tree, and there's a big hole in it. And he had been there for a breath workshop, and they were on a break, and he was feeling very lifted and expanded. And he went to this pepper tree, and he put his arm into the hole of the pepper tree, and he was transported. He couldn't feel the other end of the tree. He was like out in the cosmos. And beautiful story. And when he was telling me this once on I think it was our first date, actually, something happened to me. I had an out of body experience, and in his face, like all of these faces emerged that were like medicine men and shamans and all of these mystics that I didn't know in his face. And it was the trippiest experience. I mean, kid you not, there were no drugs involved. It was just like one story of altered consciousness or expanded consciousness evoked this other expanded consciousness in me. It was the most amazing experience. So what you brought up, Glenn, about the land that we're on and our place in it. And I think there's a lot of healing we can do as settlers to heal that, and I think a lot of this consciousness, high expanded consciousness calling forth in people across the globe, it just may be a part of the healing of Gaia, because it's not just here, it's everywhere, that this planet is a system, and that was my thesis. My thesis was about how when we practice and know who we are, and we move into a place of loving ourselves, not as in an egoic sense or as an identity, but the truth of who we are, we can then relate to people so much more, because we can then love them, and we expand this heart coherence that the Heart Math Institute talks about. And that expands to the planet, which I think is something that is happening.
All right.
I know that was a lot.
No, and that just, just listening to you talk, that the feeling that I have right now, that's what I was talking about earlier when I said how sometimes we can just be in conversation with each other. And I feel that movement of energy, that expansion, without it being, actual official prayer or spiritual mind treatment. Just listening to you talk about all that was just incredible. And it hit me many minutes ago, even maybe when Glenn was first, starting to talk, the mysticism. That's what you bring to the table that very few other people I have met so far through Global Truth Center do. They're just, you're a modern day mystic. It's different. It's other level different. And it is such, I don't even have, the words. I mean, it's so beyond pleasure, so beyond, humbling and inspiring and whatever. It's just like, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's thrilling. It's exhilarating. And I'm just so grateful that you're in my life and that we're friends. And that you have this like incredible, interesting life and so much that you have experienced and like really, really experienced, and how in tune and aware you are of what you are going through, what is emerging through you, and what you're allowing to emerge. And I just loved listening to you talk about getting off the train in Scotland and just, being so completely overwhelmed and overtaken by, just this visceral, palpable, incredible emotion and interconnectivity with the land. And
right there in the train station, thinking, who's this crazy American crying?
And it's something that I really, as we go through this class and we're talking quantum theory and non-locality and no time and, endeavoring to embrace this way of thinking, the Wetiko that Paul Levy talks about, this illusion that we're all, not all, that many are under, even people who are delving into quantum theory, about how, what we see is real, that, matter is where it's at. And that so many have agreed on this illusion that it just seems to be the truth, and to see past that, to see through that, to open our minds to new ways of thinking. The number of times that, we say, I don't know, or I can't quite articulate what I'm thinking, in this class, or in conversations that, result, as a result of this class. It's incredible, because I think all of us are trying to just break out, go beyond, use our brains in ways, and minds in ways that we're not used to using, to get into this new, whatever it is kind of thing. But kind of coming back to this, I get what you're saying about the land. I felt that I had that same experience when we came here. We were the first car on the ferry to get off, from the ferry from Vancouver to Victoria. This is when we moved here. And as that gate went down, even before we disembarked, there was just this, I'm home. Mm-hmm. And even now, just saying that, I feel that. So if there's if non-locality and no time is where it's at, but maybe there's this, Wetiko illusion. Like, what is it about, like, being, touching a tree and, like, all of a sudden being transcended, transported? What is it about getting off the train in Scotland for you? What is it about, me not even getting off the ferry, but knowing it's about to happen, but like that, sort of sense of arrival or interconnectivity that is like in that instant, like so palpable and so all, embodying, when in theory, in quantum theory, that could be felt and experienced from anywhere. I guess even, well, like I just said, like I'm remembering it and I'm still having that feeling.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the big message is our connectedness to everything, and I'm sure that uh, maybe I'm not sure, but I believe that most people have had an experience that way, in that regards of being connected, even if it's just for a brief moment, even if they haven't cultivated the consciousness to be aware of it, and to expand on it. Because what I do know is that there is only this one energy, and that we are all connected, and we're connected to the planet. To me, I believe that the planet is a living system, that we're all in this together. And I would love to see, this understanding merge into the socio-political landscape more, to understand that we are all on this together, on this planet together, and the planet, and we have to sustain each other. We have to help it. And, it's beyond the boundaries, but beyond vocabulary. It's beyond our human identification. It's a oneness that is unexplainable at times. We can grasp for words, but it's beyond words oftentimes. I would just, for once, I would just love to hear a politician say, something to that effect, that we're in this together. The coronavirus, I think, is trying, I think, that there's an opportunity there to understand that there are no borders, that we're all doing this together. And it takes me back to Don Miguel Ruiz, about his book, The Four Agreements. It says, we make certain agreements based on what we learn about ourselves and the world around us from those that are bringing us up, whether it be our teachers or our parents or our grandparents. And we don't learn this oneness because we're learning about ourselves and the world around us through their unresolved wounds and filters, right? So we all are on this illusionary path of like what it is. We all have these emotional wounds because we take things personally. We don't really we're not understanding who we are, and when Dr. James Mellon talks about, I am God, or I say I am consciousness, it doesn't mean that I'm that and you aren't. It means that we are all of that. All of us have that immense, infinite capacity to create whatever it is that we want to create. With I would just say a caveat that is that what Native American spirituality, and even Ernest Holmes talks about it, that as long as it doesn't hurt someone else, that we are free to create whatever it is. And that what I learned in Reiki, that it's just like, start with generosity, that it's an infinite source, and so there is enough, but there's a responsibility. So in Native American, I don't want to call it mythology, but in the language, that there's one word that means two things. It's I don't know what the word is, but it's like the two sides of one coin. It's your right, like here, and your responsibility. So we have rights, we have inalienable rights, and that is like our power of choice. But then there's also responsibility responsibility not only to know who we are, but to know that truth for everybody. And so that in the attainment of our good, to just know that if it doesn't hurt anyone, then then that is truly 100% good. But the problem is, so many people are living in a place of scarcity, a place of limitation, and a place of separation, that I'm here and you're the other, that I have to grasp for my good, and I don't care who I hurt to get it. That I can mow down anybody that is in my way to getting what I want, because it's like to each his own, or what's the saying, like, I've got mine, but and screw you, type of thing. And that if we were all to just like, let's just hit the pause button for a moment, let's just take a breath and just know that there's a power in you and a power in me. And like we do in spirit breath meditation, when I'm in my place and you're in your place, we know that we're in this place together, that we just are one, we're interconnected. And I think that the way forward is to look back to to remember our ancestors, the mystics, and the native peoples of these lands that know that. And I think it would change our trajectory of humankind extraordinarily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, we are on pause. I think most of the world is on pause at the moment, but
what are you doing with it?
The challenge is recognizing what brings it about, and yeah, what will you do with the opportunity, So for me, it's like my reminder that I have to keep dragging to the forefront of my vision when I find myself getting upset by a political story, or a story that, something in the news that is just undeniable front and center, which means I brought it into my experience because it's part of what the way I'm the frequency I'm on, I guess, the way I'm resonating. And my reminder is just like, what is happening is the way it's being portrayed in the media or on Twitter or whatever is framed through the lens of what the person or the people involved in that story believe, right? So, and then again, the way I pick it up is what I'm believing when I'm putting it through my own filter and lens, right? So, and the other part of it is you sort of mentioned the trap that people can fall into is like, there's such a huge story that there's so many people in the world and there's so much suffering. And I don't want to close my eyes to it. I want to be aware that that's all part of life. The thing I try to tell myself is that too is God, right? That too is God experiencing the highs and lows of life through each new birth and each new moment, right? For each person. So, I tend to live my life as far as I can in a conscious awareness way, where I don't go down that road of just saying, as long as I'm okay, I don't really care who's getting hurt or whatever. And, we live a fairly low carbon imprint or footprint sort of lifestyle. I don't think we're wasting a lot or whatever. But at the same time, you also have to keep in balance that thing of like, there is abundance, right? So when you're living from a framework of, I always have enough, like, because the universe is always providing, right? The universe is like, especially with this whole quantum thing. And I'm reading the book too, through audiobook. I'm on like chapter 3, I think. And it does ground me. It's a weird thing because it's like, it's so bizarrely opposite to the classical scientific model that, like the rules about matter, they don't matter, right? They don't, it's just nonsense.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to live a life. You have to get up and do stuff and interact. And you're just, there are so many reminders that all you're doing is in each moment selecting, what am I doing with, like you said, the rights and the responsibility thing. What am I doing with this? What's available? What am I doing with it? And, there's like a legacy that goes with that. There's a things will be your story. The things that you choose will be your story. And as far as things like the media go and getting entangled with political versions of what's going on, that also is a story. Everything is a story to me now. I've come to decide that's my new way of looking at this. Even history is a story, right? It's a way of looking at the world that is like a narrative flow. And you don't have to buy into, like, you can pick and choose whatever, because the main thing is to remember, I've got my own story. And the more I can focus on writing it very well, and the more I can focus on keeping my heart open and saying yes to as many things as possible, the better that story will be, and people will, I don't really care that they read my story or in whatever, but I want them to do their own thing. They'd write their own story instead of following the script of someone else, and I think that's what people do when they buy into even a political angle or whatever. They're in the comfort zone, back to that, of, oh, that's terrible, or that's whatever, so I'm going to go with this version of why that's happening, that this is why it's right or wrong. And that may work for a lot of us for much of our lives, but at a certain point you want to break away and go like, okay, that was okay for a while, but like, I know there's more in me that can express what that means, so I'm going to just go within, and then when it spills out, I'll be fine with it. And you, at a certain point, then you give up judgment of like yourself, and you give up caring what other people think, because you're just like, what does that matter? We come, we arrive, and we live our lives, and we get to love, and we get to suffer, and then we flow out into the universe again. So why is my wife smiling at me? What's going on?
Because I have a story that I would like to share.
Over to you.
Thank you, Glenn. That was beautiful.
That, Honey Bunch, that was amazing. Thank you, and for riffing off of what Reverend Kirby said. And it just, as you were talking, it came to mind so many of those elements, the rights, the responsibilities, the grounding, the anchoring. Reverend Kirby saying before, what is it that I'm creating from? So here's my story. Glenn knows part of it. So what is today? Today is Saturday. So at the beginning of the week, I don't know, Sunday, Monday, I tried to print something. And
You tried to do what?
Print something from my printer.
Oh,
okay.
Right.
And you know, Reverend Kirby, that my office is now in the womb of the home, in our bedroom, right? And it's an overcast day, and I am like pulling the blinds and stuff, but there's still all this light streaming through. Anyway, so I tried to print something, it wasn't working. So I took my laptop over beside the printer, thinking that, with it being closer, which is the thing, that it might come through. It didn't come through. Error message still, popping up. It wasn't crucial, it wasn't urgent, so I left it, until the next day. Over the next several days, I unplugged my computer, rebooted my laptop, downloaded a cumulative Windows update that took hours and days with the computer restarting again and again, unplugged and fiddled with the printer. After 5 days or 4 days, it's still not happening. Yet Milana, our daughter, can print from her laptop. Okay. So it has to do with me and, whatever I'm sort of putting out there. And it's not the printer itself, my laptop and me, my relationship here somehow. Right. So on Thursday, which is the day that I work from home, I'm looking online again to try and find stuff. And at this point, I'm starting to get frustrated and a little upset because now I need to print stuff. It's class day. I got to print my paper. There's bills that, I want to jot notes down on whatever. So I texted our friend who works for Microsoft and is just an amazing, amazing tech genius and is usually very available to just say, here, do this, no problem, and whatever, right?
Nice.
He's not responding to the text. And I'm like, oh, so I'm online looking for stuff. And then I realize that there is a chat function that I can get into with a Microsoft person. So I get into this conversation and it's someone who does not speak English as a first language, because I can see there's translation happening constant, please wait for translation. And we're chatting. So I explain, and it takes a while to, go through the bots to get to this person. And then it takes a while to explain what it is that's going on. And that, yes, I have tried everything, that there is to try. And this is where I'm at. What's the solution? And so it goes on and on and on. And then we finally get to what needs to be done. And he gives me 3 steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3, follow them in order. So step 1, perfect. Step 2, I get hung up on it. I can only get so far, but I can't execute it because there's something else happening. Finally, I discover this other error coming up saying that there are files running in another program. And I'm like, but I don't see this program. I don't have any other programs open. I don't know what's going on. And so I write back and the person asks me again, did you do steps 1 and 2? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I did steps 1 and 2, but I can't get to like step 2, because of, it says that these files are running in another program and I can't find them. So he just keeps repeating, did you do steps 1 and 2? And I keep going back to, okay, I'm going to, close it down. I'm going to start with step 1 again. Again, get to the, files are running in another program. Well, I did step 1. Maybe I should undo step 1 and go back to the beginning and try something again. And I tell him this and he goes, and it's like another person is responding all of a sudden in the conversation. Did you do steps 1 and 2? And I'm like, is he not hearing me? Is he not seeing, like, what is happening here? So, and then I look at my phone and I'm texting my friend and I'm like, I can't do this. I don't know what's going on. I really need your help. Are you around? And still nothing. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to treat. And so I go into treatment. Okay. And it doesn't even hit me until I'm writing about this later in a thought paper. I turn this event into a story for class. And so I go into treatment and I'm choosing a reality where my printer is printing perfectly, where my homework is done, my reading is done, everything is flowing smoothly, and just ease, grace, all of it. I know this. And then I, come out back to step 1, step 2, ta-da, step 3, printer printing, working, right? And so I'm like, yes, treatment works, right? But it's not until I'm writing the paper and I write the sentence of, the person asked me again, did you do steps 1 and 2? That I realize step 1, and here for the Reverend Kirby's laughing. Here, for those who are listening and not seeing or like don't even know, when we're doing spiritual mind treatment, step one, there's 5 steps, but step one is I am God, or I am consciousness. I am energy. I am the allness of being. Okay. Or sorry. There is only that. There is only God. There is only consciousness. There is only one thing going on. That's step one. Step two is I am that. And so as I wrote that, it just like, it totally hit me of, for 4 days, there was this building of, focusing on the problem, focusing on the printer not working, focusing on the condition, as we would call it. And even as I was, conversing with this person through Microsoft Chat, and the constant reminder of, did you do steps 1 and 2? Did you do steps 1 and 2? And even when we're talking about treatment, you got to anchor in those first 2 steps, because if you don't anchor that there is only one thing going on, but like almost more importantly, that you are that thing, and that as that thing, you are capable of being and doing, and you are being and doing, everything in this moment, you're never going to get through any of the other steps. And so it was this incredible fable-like reminder of, who am I? What am I creating from? What's my story? And, if this is my story, then what is it that, I'm, is my reality? What am I thinking? What am I believing? It was amazing. It was hilarious. And it was so liberating and, entertaining, even as I was writing that paper, because just this whole thing of, did you do steps 1 and 2? Did you do steps 1 and 2? And just to, step 1, yeah, no problem. But then when it came to step 2, and that's the thing that is just constantly the trip up for me, is whenever things are, feeling rocky or whatever. And even in those times where, things are, I don't know, I guess going smoothly, and I kind of take it for granted, to remember that the one thing, that one energy, that this consciousness that is the ground of all being, that this is who and what I am, that this is what I am creating from, that this is what's going on, and that, as that, I am interconnected and intertwingled with everyone and everything. And that, I don't know, there's so much to embrace, and so much to learn, and so much to, I don't even know at this point, because it's ongoing. It is expansive. It is, it's so different now too, because of this class and studying quantum theory, and just knowing that not only is there this energy and I am it, but that like really, 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 really 100%, I am this energy, and I can move, I can choose, I can, all these possibilities that are happening all the time. I'm the one focusing on what I'm focusing on. There's nothing else doing it for me. There's nothing else making me choose this reality to feel the way I do in this reality. Like, it's me. It's all me. And that is a huge, amazing, exciting responsibility to be aware of and to step into, moment by moment by moment by moment, which is, a more materialistic, maybe linear way of understanding it, but as shifting from materialistic into, quantum, embracing both at the same time. It's
Yep.
There's the punctuation.
Yep.
I think it's yup and no.
Yes. And wow.
Okay, so I keep looking at the clock, and it's like we're not stopping yet because there's still much. But I'm like, I'm so excited. We've talked about and touched on so many things so far.
Yeah.
But let's take a bit of a turn, and Reverend Kirby, talk to us about soul styling.
Oh,
Yeah. My daughter, I was telling Milana about it, and I guess I was just saying, because she does this, and then soul styling. She's like, what's that? And I was starting to tell her, and she's like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. I think I might want to do that sometime. Because she's like, yeah, I'd like to talk to someone about like the undertones of my skin. And I'm like, no. You want to do soul styling with Reverend Kirby. So yeah, so talk to us about that.
all right. Wow. Okay. So total shift.
Mm-hmm.
This is good. Soul styling is so joyful. It's a joyful spiritual practice in my mind. But what it is really combining. Well, let's just say this: soul styling is about clothing your authentic self, and the process of getting to that point is about finding your authentic self, not from an energetic standpoint. That as so much research has been done in color psychology from von Goethe and from Jung, that every color has a frequency and an energetic frequency and a density to it or a lightness to it, depending on the color. Well, we all have an energetic frequency too, right? Isn't that what we've been talking about this whole time? That there's only this one dynamic energy that is creating all the time, and we're not separate from that. So we all are moving through, life on this energy frequency, and the process of soul styling is that we, those of us that have been kind of trained to see how when a certain, we have like we've categorized it into 4 different elements. And it's just for naming's sake, it's just for simplicity's sake. And then when your authenticity, when your authentic self comes into into focus, right? So we all walk around in the world. Most of us, what we have found are hiding are in the comfort zone. Seriously, most of us. And there is another expression that is always seeking, that is an authentic expression. And when we do that, we experience a sense of freedom. Soul styling is also based in, majority of it is based in the work of a late 19th century, early 20th century artist, mystic, philosopher named Johannes Itten. And he taught at the Bauhaus. And if you know anything about art, the Bauhaus was a design school in Germany during the early 20th century that was all about high design for the everyday man, right? And there were artists and philosophers and sculptors and people that designed furniture and all kinds of creativity happening there. And Johannes Itten taught there, and he taught color theory and as one of his classes. And he would ask his students to paint this grid of harmonic color palette, and many of them would rebel because, after all, that's what artists have to do. That's not harmonic to me. So he said, okay, then I want you to paint a harmonic color grid, okay, and bring it back to me. And what he found over the course of teaching this, that his students fell into 4 distinct categories, that their color grids fell into these distinct categories, and something about the students themselves were similar in these 4 categories. And so he never named them. He just did a study of them. And the book, Elements of Color, I think it's what it's called. It's like a $300 book now because it's so rare, but and so I don't have it. I wish I could own that. But so where it was taken, the first generation of soul styling, and that's just my name for it. It's been called different things depending on who is working with it. But we took these 4 categories and named them the elements. So we have fire and water, air and earth, and there's energies to it. And that's what Itten talked about, that the fire energy is like this upward, angular, and forceful energy. Their motto is just do it, just they're like this. The water is a downward flowing energy. And they're like the dove, right? There's a softer flowing energy. Air is like champagne bubbles, like a bubbling brook. It's an upward diffuse energy. And the earth is a downward linear energy. We all know people, we've met people that are just so still in their being. It's remarkable. And so think of like a swan on a still lake, it's just that quietude. And so it's a process. So through having conversation with people and observing them, and we have certain colors that do resonate with that energy, we will play, and it is so playful. With these colors, we do what we call typing. So we will just put you in white or cream with photo lights on you, and then we'll play with these colors. And when the person comes into focus, for me and for my mentor, it's an emotional response. She always inevitably gets goosebumps. I just have this, I like almost cry response when we finally see you, when you show up, everything comes into focus. So like if you're wearing clothes that have nothing to do with you, or colors, and people will see those colors, or they just don't have direct access to your heart. As a healer, and I was just starting my practitioner work, but I was doing a lot of Reiki, and I had cultivated this look, kind of post-punk, all black, vintage dresses, combat boots, black hair, Betty Page bangs, like.
So hard to see you that way.
I know, all black. Like my entire wardrobe was black with maybe, a green sweater or something like that. And I was typed as air, and which is much lighter and sporadic and diffuse. And I had an epiphany. It all made sense. So all the backstory came flooding into my awareness that I had always been told as a kid. And most of us somehow get the message that's not okay to be us. For somehow, like, even if it wasn't meant to be hurtful. Like our parents will just be like, you need to just calm down. You need to stop, or, it could be something as simple as that. But the message I got was that the way I was, at that kind of, type of energy, this upward, the baby mystic, having all these experiences, and the person that I wanted the most respect from was my brother, my older brother. And he was just like, you can't prove that, just like pounding it down. And, he's a very pragmatic type of guy, like very cerebral, and I couldn't prove it. And so it was just like, okay, I got this hidden message that I had to be like him in order to be respected, accepted, and loved. And so that meant becoming still, just like the earth energy of downward linear stillness. And the black helped anchor me but it hid me too,
Mhm.
right? Black is the densest color. And believe it or not, white too. White is a very dense color because it's so stark, right? And only Earth can handle that because their energy is in alignment with the energy of the color. So soul styling is a process. So I usually do, a whole half-hour talk on how it shows up, how you can use it, what does it mean? When people meet us for the first time, the amygdala wants to know if you're a friend or a foe. And you may not be in the foe, but you may not be in the friend either.
Mhm.
You may be somewhere static, lost in between. If you're wearing something that has nothing to do with you. But if you're wearing something that is in alignment with who you are, not only do you feel more free and more confident, but other people receive it. And that there's something that's going on in the background, that they trust you more, that your relationships improve, your business relationships improve. It's just an alignment. We talk about, like, in spiritual circles and even psychology, like an alignment and how important that is. I mean, we cannot drive our car if it's not in alignment. It's the same idea that if we want to up level our life, like being in alignment with what we wear, makes a huge, huge difference. And that's what I've experienced for the last, I don't even know, 2014, when I was first experienced this, and totally changed my life. And just a personal story, that when my teacher came over, we do closet audits. So once we get typed, we'll come to your closet and we'll take out everything that's not in your element, and then we work with what you have. And then we also can do shopping trips with you. But when she came over to do my closet audit, we took out all the black. I was shocked and amazed that how the heaviness that was there was gone, that I could breathe. I remember standing in my closet thinking, oh my gosh, like, it's so different. It's so light. I barely had anything that was air, but over time, it's a process. Over time, you find things, that work for you. Another story, one of my clients who was also the black, addict, was so angry. And I was angry too when I was typed, because I immediately went to airhead, like the idea of an airhead, because I was accused of being an airhead, blonde, Southern California. And that was my brother's taunt, such an airhead. And so this other client, she was very angry, and she almost cried, sitting there. But I just told her, just be gentle with yourself. There's all kinds of aftercare that we walk people through, as far as remembering, how to take this, news, this new news,
Yeah.
step by step. And what I told her, I said, just get a couple of blouses that are navy instead of just the black. Navy is one of the foundational colors of air, and just see what happens. See how you feel, see how, it goes. And she did that. And she came to me, eyes huge, and she was just amazed and in shock that how different people responded to her.
Yeah.
When she wore the navy. She said, I never believed it. I didn't believe it, that it would make that much of a difference. But in her experience, it did. I mean, so many different stories like that. Like, just try it out. I know it's hard, it's just like it means, my black hair and my bangs and, all of that stuff. It meant completely shifting. But I just never looked back. I feel like I can be myself, and I feel free. And I know who I am, and in a deeper way and in a fun way. Because who would have thought that clothing and styling your home could be a spiritual practice, but it is very sacred. It is when you understand the meaning behind it, a deeper meaning. There was one other thing I wanted to say, but it has left my mind. It's left the room.
I have a silly question.
No silly questions
Is
here.
that silly questions?
So does that primarily, is it when you're saying the way other people see you with the way you're blocking yourself with clothing colors? Or is it also like completely from, so in other words, is it like socks and underwear too? Or is it just what other people see?
It is socks and underwear.
Okay.
It is. Okay, so
That's
I can just use myself as an example. Yes, everything that goes against your body has an energy, right? So if I have nothing to do with black, and black has nothing to do with my energy frequency, that black bra underneath my navy, is going to it's going to have a relationship with my energy,
right.
As subtle as it may be, but it does. So I've shifted to navy and cream, and of all my underwear, everything that I pick out is in my element, because I want to be in complete alignment. It really does make a big difference. It really does. I mean, and even like as an air, this kind of sporadic pattern, like, I'm looking for underwear that has little sporadic patterns, and it's supporting who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It does make a big difference. Your pajamas, anything, any underclothing, it remarkably, I mean, part of it, and I often hear myself say this even about the Reiki, like I can do distance Reiki, I can do, energy work with people from across the globe. And I'm like, I'm still amazed. I'm like, there's so many elements to it that it's like still this divine mystery. It's like music, like it's just amazing to me that people could compose something, that and make it live. And it's just, that's where the joy is. And that's why I do it, because after all, the purpose of life, thank you, Thomas Troward, is to be in joy, to be joyful. And that is what started my whole trajectory of my spiritual path. Like Michael Beckwith talking about joy, as the truth of who we are, and thinking, yeah, like I know what joy is intellectually, but have I really experienced it? And that was then the gates were opened, and here I am. Joy, 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 joy. And look, it's so funny. I brought my fan. I had my fans here in my little gold purse next to my desk. This is the air palette. Anyways.
So even silly again, but when you go to buy a pair of shoes or boots or something, they must look at you and go, like, we don't necessarily have that in your color. Like,
oh, no, I don't really, no, I've never experienced anything like that. I mean, soul styling can be, I mean, when you're typed and your element, it makes shopping really easy. And if you have a fan, like I do, I'm taking a client shopping on Wednesday. I can eyeball it, and you get to you hone your radar. Like you could just look across, scan the place, and you just know, okay, this is this and that. And then if you don't, you just put your fan against it. Is it harmonious? It may not have every color on the fan, but if it's harmonious, if it works together, then then try it on, see how you feel. And then, there's this whole element about style lines and fabric densities. There's a lot to it. And secondary elements.
okay.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to our session, which had I not had our daughter had not had to have gum surgery, and the follow-up appointment, I would have been on the other side of my soul styling session right now today.
Yeah, that's
That is
true.
yet to come.
What I
Okay.
would, one other thing I'd like to say that for me, it's helped facilitate an understanding of other people too, you know, and compassion too, because, you know, like I said, what we recognize most of us are hiding, either by diminishing ourselves or by overcompensating and, you know, exploding the world with our energy. There's just two different ways to express a need of hiding, that a unconscious discomfort with really being seen. And we work with women, you know, that really have a hard time being seen. And that's why I call it soul styling, just because I can bring my counseling skills in and really help walk people through, you know, some trauma, you know, about really being seen.
Mm-hmm. You're just so multifaceted. Just
Like
wow.
a diamond.
Now, okay, so you mentioned music, and oh, there's like a whole other podcast right there. But your art, you like I when you were moving, Reverend Kirby and her family are now living in their new home, which they are also still renovating, but in your new home. And I remember that in the transition, or not in the transition, when you were still in your previous place, something happened and a lot of your art that you had been keeping was damaged.
Yeah.
I only saw, I think, one or two, maybe pieces. I can't even remember where, but but where does art come in for you now? Do you still find time or make time, or are you drawn to paint or draw, sketch, whatever it is? And what was it for you? What did you, I saw circles, but you know, what was it that came out onto a canvas for you when you were steeped, or when you find yourself, you know, drawn to be creative in that way?
Well, I don't do a lot of 2D, you know, drawing or painting right now. I think it was a part of the path, like to really feel at home with the idea of being an artist, feeling really at home with the idea of being in that world of creativity. And I believed, you know, from my limited understanding of what creativity was, that it meant I was going to be an artist. And I lived my life that way. And I had, you know, I was painting, I had a little studio and doing drawings and a lot of mixed media, and had a gallery representing me for a short time. And then everything changed, like Don Miguel Ruiz and Agape. And it really, it opened my trajectory. And the thing about the Toltec work is that Toltec, the word Toltec translates to artist of the spirit. And that was a big aha. So while I continue making art, like 2D, you know, art, a lot of collage, things of that nature, painting, I went down the spiritual path. And now I recognize, you know, we are creative beings. Creativity never leaves us. And you know, whereas before I was very possessive of my studio, I was possessive of my time. I felt like I had to fight for it, you know. And when I lost my studio, it was tragic. But now I don't have a studio. I have a tiny little space for my art supplies. I rarely get to it, but I'm creating my life, I'm creating my path. We're all co-creating. We're all creating all the time, no matter what we think.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's right now, it doesn't show up. It doesn't manifest as a painting or a drawing, though I have hundreds, still. I'll send you a couple that, to show you a little bit, but I am creating something else right now. I'm raising kids, human beings. That's creativity. I'm, working on my ministry and focusing and on life. Aren't we all creating all the time? We're all creative. And I've always had a visceral response to people be like, oh, I am not creative at all. And I've always, even before any spiritual anything, I was just like, how can you say that? No, everybody is creative. I've always believed that, but never really understood the meat behind that. We're all creating, like you guys are creating this amazing community with these podcasts. And, what are we going to create today? What are we creating in this moment? Everything that unfolds in our life is based on what we've created in consciousness. I am a manifester, I am a creator, and so are you, Glenn. And it's evolved. I feel like I've matured around it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, once the kiddos are out of the house and there's more space in the home to create a little studio, that's for sure is going to happen. It's already happening. Because it's a meditation for me, to paint and to be with my music, which is a big part of it. Very eclectic tastes. And thank you for the question. It's still a part of who I am, and it's that quantum entanglement. It never leaves us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, geez. Wow. Well, I know I could keep asking you questions. I could keep talking, but I'm looking at the time and it's been a couple of hours. So
Can't believe it.
Honey Bunch, is there anything that you want to quickly end with before we move to the next segment?
One tiny, just your children's names are beautiful. Does Zuzu come from It's a Wonderful Life, or is it something else I'm totally missing?
No, you got it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Frank Capra.
Yes. We wanted to, it was a reminder that it really is a wonderful life, no matter what may be going on.
All right. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay.
Her middle name is Bee, like a honeybee. And the honeybee is the Toltec symbol of awareness.
Oh, okay.
So both of our kids, their middle names we want to endow with a quality. So that's what Zuzu's was.
Yeah. And Kiva, we have a friend back in Toronto whose daughter's name's Kiva, but it's spelled the Irish way. That is, I can't even. There's a lot of silent letters going on. So
yeah, no doubt. That Gaelic is just crazy. Kiva was. We just met someone before we were pregnant. We met someone that was just very illuminated. I know we've all met people that are like, they just seem, there's something very illumined about them. And his name was Kiva. And when we were pregnant with him, we were looking at Scottish names and names from David's family and looking at everything. We just kept coming right back to Kiva. So that's what we started with. So we had no idea what it means. You can find it in ancient texts across the globe. Everywhere in ancient Judaic texts, in the city of Khiva of Uzbekistan, And in the Hopi creation myth, I mean, it's all over, and we had no idea. So my friends that were like overactive minds, as soon as we announced his birth and his name, we got tons of emails like, did you know? Did you know that? Did you know that? It's like, oh my God, we have so many active minds in our circle here, none of which we knew. And his middle name is Sal. So I met someone again when I was in high school. Like we were at a gig, like it's just like some like punk show or something. And here's this guy that's just like, oh, he might have just had like a halo around him, and it was something that was just, he was so striking, and his name was South. And I thought, oh, South, that's like south facing, always gets the sun. It's always illumination. And that's what inspired Kiva's name in the first place, was illumination. So.
Wow.
Wow. Great question. Amazing answers.
Yeah. Took us a whole 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, speaking of minutes, it's time for the super rapid fire question round, which takes only 1 minute.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
All right. So Glenn is the one who is going to bombard you with questions, and you can answer as many as you can off the top of your head, no deep thought or anything. Let's get to know Reverend Kirby a little bit better. Honey Bunch, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, go.
Do you sing in the shower?
Sometimes.
How many tattoos do you have?
0.
Yoga or cycling?
Yoga.
Oil or watercolor?
Oh. Those are the only choices I get. Oh my God. Oil.
Okay. Spanish or French?
Oh God. Spanish.
Okay. Coltrane or Davis?
Oh, how dare you? How dare you?
Quick.
Oh, no, I have to say Coltrane.
Zoolander or Devil Wears Prada?
Oh my God. Such choices. I have to say Zoolander. I've seen it more.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs.
Okay. Jigsaw or crossword puzzle?
Jigsaw.
Ding, 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 ding.
Wow.
Oh my God. Those are some really tough choices.
Okay.
How do you choose between Davis and Coltrane, Devil Wears Prada, and Zoolander? Oh my God.
Sorry.
Anyone who is just listening, I encourage you to go over to YouTube and actually watch this segment, because Reverend Kirby's facial expressions were priceless. Oh my gosh.
Such discomfort and pain.
Oh my God, you guys.
Acrylic to the.
Oh, I know. Well, here's the thing. It's just like, okay, I used to paint in oil. I love oil, the viscosity of it and everything. It's just like, it's so yummy. And then like watercolor, I don't do watercolor, but I do gouache. Gouache is a denser version of watercolor. It has more pigment in it. So that's what I use, but I can't say watercolor.
How do you spell gouache?
Gouachh. I think there's an E at the end.
Oh, okay. All right. Would you like to know what you've won?
Wow, this is just, I never knew this was going to happen. Yes. What?
Okay.
What?
From the book, Eternal Echoes, John O'Donohue.
Oh.
Celtic Reflections on Our Yearning to Belong. Okay. And as I said, he quotes a lot of mystics and poets. There's a couple of poems in here I was going to read for you, but this is the one I landed on. It's one of his. It's just a blessing. So here you go. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame, and may anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. There you go.
No words. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Glad you like that. Thank you.
Please take a picture of the cover and send it to me.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Thank you so much.
From that very cozy place, that was so beautiful, Honey Bunch. Thank you, Reverend Kirby, for being with us today. What an amazing, rich, full, engaging, just delightful
Colorful.
conversation that was.
Colorful.
Colorful, playful, joyful, everything. Just wow, 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 wow. So if someone would like to get in touch with you, find out more about you, what is the best place for them to do that, or best way?
They can go to heart2hearthealingarts.com. I apologize for the long URL. It's heart2to, so hearthealingarts.com, and just go to the contact page there. You can reach out to me there.
Okay. All right. Oh, I've had too much cinnamon and I'm coughing. Excuse me. Thank you again. Just what an amazing, amazing, amazing way to spend a couple of hours this morning. And yeah, just I'm also so delighted that you and Glenn had a chance to hang out for a couple of hours.
Yeah,
he's heard a lot about you.
It's been really wonderful spending time with you both. Thank you so much. It's been an honor being here with you, spending this morning with you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you to Honey Bunch, otherwise known as Glenn Sheridan. Thank you to Reverend Kirby Ingram, who was our guest today. My name is Lassia, and thank you to everyone who tuned in, who listened, who watched, however you engaged with us today. We're so delighted that you were with us for another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? So enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. If you liked what you've heard, then, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. You know how to get in touch with Reverend Kirby if you'd like. And if you want to get in touch with us, then you know how to do that as well. So thank you again for tuning in. And we will be back again soon with a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lassia Kohut, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Reverend Kirby Ingram. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sak Masterke, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lassia Kohut Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiakohut.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?